Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice week. It's Thursday. We're over the hump. NBA basketball's back. Indiana's ranked 13th in the country in football. Indiana basketball's right around the corner. Purdue basketball's right around the corner. NFL Sunday. Just so many things going on in the sports world. It honestly couldn't be better. Like, there is no better time of the year than late October, early November. World Series starts on Friday. We're getting closer and closer to what is the sports equinox. And if you're like, Jonathan, what is that? It's the best day of sports of the entire year. Today, where we've got a football game, a baseball game, a basketball game, and a hockey game. Okay, it is quickly approaching. I cannot wait. And I can't wait for the Colts and the Texans game on Sunday. I love books. I love movies. If you follow me on Twitter, the chances are you see me tweet something out about how much pleasure I find in going out and watching a movie in a movie theater by myself. I find just a ton of joy in sitting down on the couch late at night after my wife has gone to bed. Total silence, just sitting and reading my spy thrillers, okay? Like, I love books. I love movies. And while some people judge books by covers, which is totally fine, by the way, books have covers for a reason, okay? And other people judge movies by trailers. I don't do that. I judge books and movies by titles. If your title's bad, I'm not reading your book. I'm not watching your movie. Okay? Some people are racist, some people are ageist. I am neither. I am a titleist, though, and I don't mean the golf brand. Like, titles matter, right? They often hint at the theme of the book that you're about to read or the movie that you're about to watch. Okay? And every book has a theme, every movie has a theme, and every sporting event has a theme. And because titles should, a good title at least, should give you a hint at the theme of whatever you're about to read or watch or consume, I have decided that every Thursday, I am going to title the upcoming Colts game and the upcoming Indiana Hoosiers game. Okay, so these titles are simply projections of what I think the theme of the game is going to be. With that being said, the title of this week's Colts versus Houston Texans game is rather simple. Show me the Whoop, that didn't work. Let's try that again. The theme of this Colts and Texans game is rather simple. Show me the money! Show me the money. The Colts are set to take on the Houston Texans this Sunday in their second division battle of the year in a stadium 1,034 miles away from the very seat that I currently sit in. 3 days from now, the 4-3 Indianapolis Colts will take on the 5-2 Houston Texans in what is a huge game for both teams as the spot atop the division is at stake. The Houston Texans, they're trying to build a comfortable division lead against this, pesky Indianapolis Colts team that, despite playing ugly football, has managed to stay around as the Houston Texans look to repeat as AFC South champs. This is a rematch from week one in which the Houston Texans beat the Indianapolis Colts 29-27. It was a hard-fought game. Okay, both teams, put points on the board through explosive plays. Anthony Richardson came out, got Colts fans excited, showed his ability to do the improbable, while CJ Stroud just did what he's done ever since he got drafted. And that's just enough to win. Joe Mixon ran wild like a Texan on an undomesticated Bronco on his way to 159 yards and a touchdown while averaging over 5 yards a carry. From that game on, questions have surfaced about this Indianapolis Colts defense, and rightfully so. While this Colts defense has shown the ability to get stops these past couple weeks, right, against the Miami Dolphins, a team that they held to 10 points, and against the Tennessee Titans, a divisional foe that they held to 17 points 2 weeks ago. The Colts are currently 12th in the NFL in points allowed per game. But let's be honest, that doesn't feel right. considering the rushing yards that they've allowed. Gus Bradley has been asked a lot of questions about this Indianapolis Colts defense, especially the run defense. And he claimed earlier this week in his press conference that a lot of these issues are disappearing. And they have an opportunity this week to show Colts fans the money. They have an opportunity to provide proof that these defensive struggles that the Indianapolis Colts have had this year are gone. On the offensive side of the ball, the Colts had nothing but big plays in that week 1 loss, right? The Texans will look to limit this from the Colts offense, after the Colts beat them over the top repeatedly in week 1. Anthony Richardson obviously played a large role in that. He was 9 of 19 for 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. That interception, not his fault. Kyle Granson got to make that catch. In that week 1 game, Anthony Richardson had a 54-yard completion, a 57-yard completion, and a 60-yard completion. Since that game, Anthony Richardson hasn't shown very much. And Indianapolis fans, after seeing Joe Flacco play against the Titans and against the Jaguars, are starting to doubt the young quarterback. Okay, he has an opportunity this week to show them the money, to show them that he's got more big plays in the tank. Okay, that is what is at stake for him in this offense. And also, whoever makes the better adjustments following that week 1 game that happened, 7 weeks ago now, will come out victorious in this Colts versus Texans part 2. Show me the money. It's a big game for the Colts. It is. We all know it. Okay. It is, it's important, right? Because it's a divisional game. That's something that people are going to say a ton, and they're going to beat it over the head, and it's going to be annoying by the time this game is played. Okay. Because every time there's a divisional game, it's all that anyone can say about it. Right. Like if you walk up to your buddy and you're like, hey, man, you looking forward to the Colts and Texans game? They're like, oh, well, it's a divisional game, so it's a big one. That's how the conversation will likely start. Okay, so obviously the Colts have an opportunity to tie the season series at a game apiece, improve to 2-2 in divisional games. They'll also have the opportunity to tie the Texans atop the division, right, with 9 games left, which is a big deal. I don't think many of us really thought that the Colts would be in this spot 8 weeks into the season. And Anthony Richardson was asked yesterday about, how big of a deal this game is with a spot atop the division on the line. And here's what Colts starting quarterback Anthony Richardson had to say.
I know it's definitely on our mind, but honestly, we're not thinking about trying to tie records or anything like that. Honestly, just trying to win. It's a division game. This one counts double for us, so we're just trying to get the dub and just keep stacking each and every week.
Anthony Richardson right there talking about this upcoming game against the Houston Texans. There are times where Anthony Richardson's demeanor bothers me, and there are other times where I appreciate it. I like that he's relaxed in this spot. Okay, people are going to make a big deal out of this game because it's a divisional game, right? And if the Colts win, then they'll be 5-3, tied for first. And if they lose, then they'll be 4-4, 1-3 in the division. It'll feel, like the Colts are far away from where the Texans are, being down 0-2 in the season series, with them also being 6-2 and the Colts being 4-4, right? Like it'll feel like all hope's lost in terms of them winning this division. Ultimately, though, it's week 8. That's the reality of it. And the Colts obviously want to win this game, just like they want to win next week when they play the Vikings, if I remember correctly, right? And winning this game would obviously help the Colts greatly in terms of winning the division. But if they lose, there's 9 games left. A lot can happen in 9 games, right? Like guys get hurt, players return from injury, players get suspended. Jameson Williams of the Lions, he just got suspended for PEDs. He's out for 2 games. Trades get made. Okay, so even if the Colts lose this week, they can still make the playoffs, right? And Richardson's calm demeanor is appreciated in this game because even though this game is important, in reality, I think Anthony Richardson understands that it's just another regular season game with the second half of the season still in front of them, right? This is the second meeting, though, between these two AFC South teams, right? And look, I've already said it way too much, and we're 10 minutes into the show. Divisional games are all important. And Colts head coach Shane Steichen was asked about the first game between these two teams that took place during week 1 and what his takeaways were. Here's Colts head coach Shane Steichen on his takeaways from that week 1 game against the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I think there's just some opportunities in the game, too. I think, obviously, it was 13-15 at one point. We went for 2, didn't get it, and then they scored. And then we kind of stalled a little bit and then created the big plays late in the game, to get back in it. So, obviously, creating those earlier in the game and maintaining drives offensively will be big. And then eliminate the explosives that they have on offense will be big for us.
Shane Steichen right there, Colts head coach, talking about just the week 1 game. He obviously went through the tape earlier in this week. That way his team could prepare for this upcoming game against the Houston Texans, their second matchup of the season. And just thinking back on that game, I went back, I looked at the box score, I looked at the play-by-play, went back and watched some of the possessions as well. Shane Steichen's exactly right, which isn't a surprise because he just told you what he saw, right? So the Colts generated a lot of big plays, okay? Anthony Richardson completed 3 passes for over 50 yards individually, right? So, 150 of his 212 passing yards came off of 3 plays. Okay, so they generated a ton of big plays in that game. And not even just on offense. Like, they blocked a punt as well, which set up a Colts touchdown. Okay, the one thing that they didn't do that they'll need to do this week is force a turnover. Right? Like looking back at that week 1 game against Houston, like that was the difference. Like if that ball doesn't go through Granson's hands and he catches it, the Colts probably score on the next play because that was a red zone turnover that happened down by the goal line. Like that was a big play, and that was ultimately the difference in the week 1 battle between these two teams. Defense for the Colts has got to force a turnover, and the Colts offense needs to not turn it over. Okay, so the biggest thing, though, in that clip and with everything that Shane Steichen just said there is he mentioned the offense being more consistent. And going back and rewatching part of that Colts versus Texans week 1 game and just looking at the box score and the play-by-play and all these things, the Colts had 6 drives of 5 plays or less. Like that's an issue, right? And that's part of the critique and the criticism of Anthony Richardson, his inability to sustain drives, his inability to make a throw on 3rd and 5 that's accurate to a wide open Josh Downs or Michael Pittman Jr., right? Like that has been one of the bigger issues with him, right? Is that inability to keep drives moving. And like that's something that needs to happen this week. When you look at the time of possession, and some people tell you it's not important, I will tell you that it's extremely important. The time of possession, week 1, was incredibly lopsided. The Texans had the ball for 40 minutes, and the Colts only had the ball for 20 minutes. And the biggest reason why time of possession is important is because it gives your defense a chance to rest. And when I went back and I rewatched part of that Colts and Texans game, when you watch the end, Colts defense just looked tired and worn down at the end of that game, which, allowed the Texans the opportunity to run the ball for first downs late. Okay, so you want to keep your defense obviously off the field so that they don't get worn down throughout the game. The other thing is, this Colts defense isn't very good. From what we've seen, at least, right? As I said earlier, like Gus Bradley has a chance to cash some checks this week that he made with his mouth about how these issues are starting to go away. Well, we're going to find out because this Houston Texans team, they can score. This is a much better offense than Miami or Tennessee. Okay, so I don't think that this defense is very good. Because of that, the Colts should want them on the field as little as possible. So one of the other big keys for the Colts this week is Anthony Richardson being better on 3rd down, completing the 3rd and 3 pass to Jonathan Taylor. Or, hey, man, if you can't complete the pass, take off, run, and pick it up with your legs. If he can do that, if he can just keep the chains moving, if he can even out the time of possession a bit, and the Colts can find a way to stop the run, then they will have an excellent chance to win this game. They went down there last year and won. Okay, so there's no doubt in my mind that this Colts team is good enough to go in there, go down to Houston, and win this football game. There's not a doubt in my mind. They just have to do the little things well. Convert on 3rd down and stop the run. And they will be totally fine having DeForest Buckner back. He practiced yesterday. Hopefully he's able to go on Sunday. That will help. Jonathan Taylor practiced yesterday. Hopefully he'll be good to go on Sunday. Those two players are going to play, hopefully, a major role in the outcome of this game. If they're on the field, DeForest Buckner obviously brings a little bit more depth to that defensive line, which is needed because Taven Bryant, Grover Stewart, and Raekwon Davis, 3 solid players. Not great, though. Okay, DeForest Buckner's arguably the best player on this defense, so getting him back will be a huge boost for the Colts defense. And then obviously on offense, Jonathan Taylor played like one of the best running backs in the NFL before he had the high ankle sprain. So hopefully they're both good to come back because they'll both play big roles in this game. Coming up at 11 o'clock, Jared Dubin of CBS Sports. Love having him on. He covers the NFL for CBS Sports, and then he's got his own personal website where he covers basketball. He does a great job over there as well. So he's going to join the show. We're going to talk a lot of NFL, and I'm going to sprinkle in a couple NBA questions for him because the Pacers and the rest of the NBA season got going, in these past couple days. So looking forward to having Jared on at 11. Should be a good time. When we come back here in 4 minutes, I continue to give out titles, right? I'm titling the Washington-Indiana game when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice day. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's on Twitter at __ Jonathan Smith. You can also follow the station there at Ticket 1430. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. The best way to watch Indy's Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there, subscribe, and hop in the chat. Maybe you're listening via the Indy Sports Ticket app, where you can also listen to the Dan Dockett Show. Great show in store for you today. Already titled the Colts and Texans game. Jared Dubin of CBS Sports, NFL writer, he's going to join me coming up here in about 40 minutes at 11 o'clock. Washington, Indiana. Okay, very much looking forward to this game. Another opportunity for Indiana to continue to prove that they're one of the 12 best teams in the country, since apparently, the people who vote in the AP poll, they don't think that they are, since they ranked them 13th, which is ridiculous. If you don't mind me adding, this has been covered several times on my show. Love books. I love movies. Okay. I'm cool if you judge a book by its cover, right? That's why the cover's there. Okay. Some people judge movies by trailers. Not me. Not me. I judge books and movies by their titles. Okay. If your title sucks, I'm not reading your book. I'm sorry. I'm not reading your book. I'm not watching your movie. Okay. I am a titleist, and I don't mean the golf brand. I just mean that titles matter. Okay. And if your title's not good, I'm not watching or reading whatever you got going on. But titles clearly matter, right? They hint at the theme of the book or the movie, right? Every book has a theme. Every movie has a theme. And every sporting event, every game has some sort of theme. And because titles give you a hint at the theme every Thursday, I give the upcoming Colts and Indiana football games a title, right? And these titles are just projections of what I think the theme is going to be in that game. I did the Colts game in the last segment, Colts versus Texans. Show me the money. And for this one, Washington versus Indiana, Taven Jackson has an opportunity to be
a smooth criminal.
Taven Jackson, he's going to start a quarterback this week for Indiana, and that's a big deal, right? Anytime you have a backup quarterback, like that clearly matters, especially when you're playing a team like Washington that's beaten a good team this year in Michigan. So he is going to be a major theme, a major topic of this game, right? In a stadium not that far away down there in Bloomington. They're now 7-0 and 13th ranked Indiana Hoosiers will play a game against the 4-3 Washington Huskies in Memorial Stadium in Bloomington, Indiana, in front of a sold-out crowd, once again hyped up after College Game Day does their show there that morning. Okay, the excitement around Indiana football, it hasn't been this high in a long time. Okay, the Indiana Hoosiers 7-0 start behind Kurt Cignetti has taken the college football world by storm. This is a tough, hard-nosed, physical football team. Okay, and people are really believing that this team can make the college football playoff, which is fun and exciting. But if they lose this week, that excitement's going to fade. People are going to be like, when's basketball season? The answer is right around the corner. Washington is a good football team. Indiana appears to be a great football team, right? And every week, we're going to continue to learn about this Indiana team. Okay, we learned a lot about them last week as they blew the doors off of Nebraska 56-7, outplayed them in every phase of the game. Okay, one of the biggest things for this Indiana team was the play of starting quarterback Curtis Rourke, right? He was having a stellar year, like dark horse for the Heisman kind of guy, completing 75% of his passes. Insert joke about him being better than Anthony Richardson right here. Anyway, Curtis Rourke had thrown for almost 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. The guy's a stud, right? He's been playing like a stud, and he's out this week, sadly. He should be back soon, though. Hopefully he's back for their next game against, I believe, Michigan State. As of right now, though, he's not playing on Saturday against a good Washington team, right? And who your opponent is matters, and it always will. But what matters more than your opponent is who's playing quarterback. Okay, when you're playing a good opponent like Indiana is on Saturday, your quarterback play better be up to par. Because if it's not, you're in trouble. Seriously, you just are. So Taven Jackson, look, he doesn't have to play like a smooth criminal. If he can just not play like a toddler trying to steal a cookie out of like a cookie jar, you know, those toddlers, they never succeed when it comes to that, then Taven Jackson has a decent chance to lead the Hoosiers to victory. Okay, if he can just make some basic throws, then Indiana is going to have a chance to win this game. But if he struggles, right, and he can't complete 3rd and 4, then this team is going to be in trouble, and they could be on upset alerts, okay? Like, his ability to throw the football is going to be so incredibly important, because if they turn into the Michigan offense where it's all run and they don't want to throw the ball, then they will lose. And I know that because I saw Washington beat Michigan, who can't throw the ball at all this year. I saw Washington beat them earlier in the year by 10. Indiana should have a run game that the offense can rely on. That should make things easier on Taven Jackson, right? They've got a defense that gets stops. They win in the trenches on both sides of the football, right? So things are set up for Taven Jackson to have some help. He just has to execute these throws, okay? But here's the thing. There's going to be 3rd and 8s, because this is, once again, like, Washington is a good team. There's going to be 3rd and 8s where everyone in the building knows that Taven Jackson is about to throw the football, and he has to make those throws. And everyone in the stadium, right, is going to be relying on that. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of emotion, weighed in on how Taven Jackson plays. Okay, Washington's a good team, and those plays could decide this game. Taven Jackson played well against Nebraska last week when he came in. He's talented. This staff knows it. And Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti was asked about Taven Jackson earlier this week, and here's what the coach had to say.
I have confidence. The staff has confidence in Taven Jackson. I thought he played really well in the second half. I think you see it during the games when he gets his opportunity, you know, and how he's responded and how he responded on Saturday. And, you know, he's a year older, and it's a different offense. It's a different system. Tino does a great job of developing the quarterbacks. You know, he's got excellent potential, and he's gotten better. And now he's got an opportunity, and he's got to take it and run with it.
That was Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti right there talking about Taven Jackson, backup quarterback, brother of Trace Jackson Davis, who started last night for the Warriors. He's going to take the start on Saturday with Curtis Rourke being injured. Look, this dude's talented. Okay, like, if you watched the Nebraska game, then that was pretty obvious. The dude's athletic. He can clearly throw it and all those things. The thing is just, can he be consistent? Like I said, the talent's there. 4-star guy coming out of Center Grove down there in Greenwood, right? Was recruited by Tennessee and Arkansas and Auburn and some big-time SEC schools. So he's got the talent to come in and produce and be a good player. And he's going to be the X factor this week for the Hoosiers as they host game day and host this really big, important game on Saturday. Okay, look, if he's just okay, if he's solid, then this game won't be close, because I think Indiana across the board is just better than Washington is. Okay, like, simple as that. But if he struggles, right, and he can't make the basic throws and he can't make the basic reads, then Indiana could find themselves in a dogfight. Last night, the Indiana Pacers started up their season. Jared Dubin, he's set to join me here in about 30 minutes at 11 o'clock. Right, he covers the NFL for CBS Sports, but he covers the NBA on his own. So we're going to talk a lot of NFL, but at the end, I've got a couple basketball-related questions for him. The Pacers started their season last night. They won 115-109 on the road against the Pistons. Miles Turner led the Pacers in scoring and rebounding last night with 20 points and 9 rebounds. That's why I'm wearing his jersey today. You know, dude's a good player, whether you like it or not. He can. Love Miles Turner. Love the way he plays. Anyway, Halliburton got off to a slow start, but, you know, he picked it up in the second half, and they were able to come back. And this team, just watching last night, they're so deep. Like, they've just got so many guys that can play. Like Ben Shepherd, a guy who played like real playoff minutes last year, was the 12th guy off the bench. He only played 6 minutes. 12 different guys for the Pacers played in that game, and it wasn't like this game was out of hand at some point. Like, it was close the whole way, and they still played 12 different guys. It's pretty crazy. Like, that is a ton of depth. And, as I kind of track the Pacers throughout the year, and I'll keep you updated because you're probably mainly going to watch the Colts and IU, which is cool. That's what most people do. Like, that is, I think, the thing that I'm so interested to see from Rick Carlisle this year. Like, how does he manage all these guys who can clearly play? Like Benedict Mathurin's coming off the bench. He had 19 points last night. He played really well. Jarris Walker, he came in off the bench. He only played like 6 or 7 minutes, but like he looked good. Like there's a plethora of talent and guys that can really play. And how Rick Carlisle kind of navigates all that is going to be really interesting. And look, like that is not a bad issue to have at all. You'd rather have too many guys that can play as opposed to not enough, like the New York Knicks currently do. They're bringing dudes off the bench that I've never even heard of. Okay, so this Pacers team off to a good start. The road to 82-0 is alive and well. Can't wait to see how those things go. Staying in the world of basketball here for a second. Former two-time National Player of the Year, Zach Edey, made his NBA debut last night. Khalil Ware, the pride of the Indiana Hoosiers, he made his debut last night as well. Zach Edey, he's going to have some adjusting to do. Okay, Zach Edey helped the Grizzlies get a win, right, which is obviously the most important thing. Started the game, but he only played 15 minutes. And I don't think that was the plan. I think that the Grizzlies were going to play him like 25-ish minutes. But hard to do that when he can't stay out of foul trouble. He fouled out in 14 minutes. Like six fouls in 15 minutes is kind of absurd. Okay, college basketball is I think college basketball appears to be more physical than the NBA, but more fouls are called in the NBA, and that's because these NBA scorers just know how to draw fouls, right? It's something that's annoying, but that's just the reality of the NBA. These guys, they're really good at getting to the free throw line. And so that's something that Zach Edey's going to have to adjust to, right? He was effective, like when he was in, he did a lot of the stuff that I kind of thought he was going to do. He scored 4 points on 4 shots, and he pulled down 5 rebounds. But you're like, Jonathan, like that's a productive 15 minutes. Given who Zach Edey is and what the Grizzlies want him to be, I would say yes. Like he's a guy who's going to set screens, roll to the rim, and that's it. If he made his free throws, he took 5. Like he'd have had a better night. But like he didn't have a bad debut, right? He protected the rim, he set good screens, and he rebounded. Like that's what the Grizzlies need from him, and that's what he did. So, he fared well in his debut. He's going to have to make some adjustments to how he plays defense to avoid the foul trouble, but I'm sure he'll be fine going forward. And then, of course, Khalil Ware only played 6 minutes for the Heat last night, which isn't overly surprising considering that they have Bam Adebayo, one of the better centers in the NBA, a guy who they can run offense through and a guy who can definitely anchor a defense. So Khalil Ware not playing a ton isn't surprising. In the 6 minutes that he was on the floor, he didn't score a point. He grabbed 1 rebound, but he was plus 13, so he didn't mess anything up while he was out there. So, yeah, there you go. The Heat got crushed last night by the Orlando Magic. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, we're going to do some coach speak grades. We know our beloved head coach, Shane Steichen, loves to give away absolutely nothing at his press conferences. So we're going to grade some of his coach speak when we come back. And then we've got another great college football slate. Going to get into that a little bit as well. And then here in about 25 minutes at 11 o'clock, Jared Dubin is going to join from CBS Sports. We're going to talk NFL and a little bit of hoops as well. But when we come back here in 4 minutes, coach speak grades from Coach Steichen.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. I greatly appreciate it, whether you're watching on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there, subscribe, watch the show that way, be part of the conversation. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, or I guess X. That's what we're supposed to call it now. Going to take me a while to break that habit. But maybe you're watching over there. If you want to follow me there, _ Jonathan Smith. You can also follow the station at Ticket 1430. Maybe you're listening via the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. You can also listen to the Dan Dockett Show on there from noon to 3. He follows my show, Jared Dubin, coming up here in about 20 minutes. We're going to talk NFL, NBA, all those great things. It is just a wonderful time of the year. We got everything rolling right now. Hockey's going, basketball's going, the NFL's going, college football's going. The World Series starts tomorrow night, which is going to be great. Can't wait for any of it. But obviously, we're all looking forward to Sunday. Big game between the Colts and the Texans. Another divisional matchup. And as Coach Steichen does every single Wednesday, head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, he walks up to the podium and, he gets asked these different questions. And every Wednesday, he just doesn't answer any of them. He doesn't answer any of them. And so I like to give out coach speak grades. How good of a job does he do answering these questions without really answering these questions? Kamala Harris and Trump could honestly take notes from Shane Steichen on how to do this. So I've only got 2 clips for you today. First clip, he was asked about, playing against the Texans and did they get better, worse, all those different types of things. I actually don't think I grabbed those clips. Gosh dang it. Never mind. We're not going to do that. We're going to talk college football. Error on my part. This is why I need a producer, right? It made my life a little bit easier. Anyway, college football slate this weekend. 12th ranked Notre Dame is going on the road. They're taking on 24th ranked Navy. And, this is once again just another great week of college football. Okay? Like I love college football so much. One of the best parts of this year has been Indiana being better, or not even just being better, but being one of the best teams in the country. It gives me, a little leeway to get into the college football landscape as a whole, because, this is, we're 3/4 of the way through the year after this Saturday, right? Excluding, conference championship games and the college football playoff and all these things. But we're legitimately looking at teams being eliminated from playoff contention. We're looking at teams trying to work their way kind of into the conversation. And Indiana, based off the AP poll, which isn't the most accurate thing in the world, because some of these writers have no idea what they're talking about. If they did, then they'd have Indiana ranked in front of Notre Dame. But hey, that's beside the point. As of the AP poll right now, Indiana would be on the outside looking in. So all these other games matter. 12th ranked Notre Dame going on the road. They're playing Navy. Navy is a team that could legitimately beat Notre Dame. Those games at noon. It's on ABC. Can't wait to watch it. I cannot wait to watch this game because Navy has a legitimate chance to beat Notre Dame because Navy is good, which is a really weird thing to say. I feel like this happens once every 5 to 10 years where we look up and it's like, oh, Army's good, or oh, Navy's good. This year it's like, oh crap, Army and Navy are good, and it's great. It's great for the sport. The Army-Navy game is going to, draw a bunch of eyes this year, and as it does every year because people just like watching these teams play. But this is Navy's biggest game of the year, right? If in terms of teams that are ranked and things of that nature, they don't play another ranked opponent all year. So this is going to be, our first chance to really kind of see how Navy stacks up against one of the better teams in the world of college football, right? And this is also our first chance to get a look at what Notre Dame's going to look like against this triple option because later on in the year, they're going to play Army, right? That's their second to last game of the year. It's a month away from yesterday. Like, this game is going to be just important for not only Notre Dame and seeing what they're going to look like against Army later in the year, but it's also big for Navy. Like, they have an opportunity to put a big resume building win under their belt. Okay. Like, Navy's good. The triple option's hard to stop. I feel like if Notre Dame is going to lose to either Army or Navy, it's most likely going to be this game against Navy. Not necessarily because I think Navy's better than Army, but more just because it's Notre Dame's first time this year defending the triple option, which is incredibly difficult to prepare for because most teams just don't have the guys to run that offense. So, like, that is an incredibly important thing. Another big game this Saturday, 20th ranked Illinois is going on the road to take on number 1 ranked Oregon. Can't wait to watch this game. Okay, I get, it's Illinois on the road at Oregon, the travel, time zone, differential thing. This feels like a sneaky upset. Illinois is tough, man. I love watching Illinois play, right? They're about the trenches. They play good defense. They make you beat them. They run the ball. The defense is solid, and they don't turn the ball over. Like, Illinois is not going to hand you the game. Like, you're going to have to go out there and beat them. And most games are lost, not won, right? Most of the time, football games are lost because someone throws a dumb interception. Someone doesn't hold on to the football, and the next thing you know, it's on the turf, and someone else is jumping on it. Like, most games are lost, not won. Like, I've seen teams lose games this year just because they commit too many penalties. Like that's a real thing, and like, Oregon better be ready to play, right? Because they're better than Illinois. They're more talented. Dan Lanning's probably a better coach than Brett Bielema and all those things. But if they aren't ready and they come out flat, Illinois is more than capable of beating Oregon, no doubt in my mind. Another big game. And elimination game, really. That's what this is. 21st ranked Missouri is going on the road to take on 15th ranked Alabama. This could be an elimination game for the college football playoff. Alabama has 2 losses. They're not getting in with a third. They're not. Missouri has 1 loss, but like, they don't play. Their schedule's relatively easy, right? So I don't know how many other big time resume building wins they have to kind of show this committee that they're one of the 12 best teams in the country. Like, their schedule the rest of the way is incredibly easy. It's Oklahoma, who's not very good, South Carolina, who's frisky, but Missouri should win that game, Mississippi State, and then Arkansas, who's, who knows what they're going to do. I don't even. Anyway, sorry there. So this is kind of Missouri's last chance to kind of have this statement win. If they win this game, then have a decent chance to play in the SEC title game, which will be kind of an interesting thing there. So Alabama, on the other hand, 2 losses, not getting in with a third. I got to be honest, like, I don't like Missouri, but I kind of hope they win just to watch these Alabama fans go absolutely nuts, right? If Kalen DeBoer loses to Missouri, then people are going to go absolutely insane, and it's going to be great to watch. Twitter will be a lovely, lovely place if Missouri can pull off that upset. So can't wait to watch that game Saturday. 5th ranked Texas goes on the road to Nashville, where we already saw a number 1 ranked Alabama team lose. So Texas making the trip from Austin to go play Vanderbilt. Who would have thought that this would be a notable game this year? Like, seriously, who would have thought that Notre Dame and Navy would be a notable game this year? Okay, Vanderbilt, we talk about Army and Navy just kind of showing up randomly. Vanderbilt, like, who would have thought? Right? Texas is coming off of a loss to Georgia. I expect them to bounce back, but Vanderbilt is legitimately good. They are. Like, they have some issues on defense, but they can score with anyone, right? They run like a modernized triple option weird offense thing. So Texas is going to have their work cut out for them, but there's another game where it's like, if Texas doesn't show up, Vanderbilt is more than capable of beating them. More than capable of beating them. There's 2 other big games this weekend that kind of catch my eye. And maybe this one is just because I'm a Penn State hater and I just refuse to believe in Penn State until they beat Ohio State or Oregon or someone that's legitimately good. But Penn State goes on the road to play Wisconsin. Wisconsin's been crushing everybody as of late, right? Like they lose to Alabama. I'm one of the guilty parties. I was like, all right, like they got crushed by Alabama. They lose their starting quarterback. Their season likely over. That was kind of how I felt about them going forward. And they've just, Luke Fickell, like he can really coach. And that's the best, I think, compliment you can give any coach is like, look, like they have a chance in this game because of who their coach is. And he's figured out a way to kind of get things rolling there at Wisconsin despite the injury and despite getting their doors blown off by what is a really good Alabama team, even though they've had some of their ups and downs. And so Penn State this week, they're going on the road, which winning on the road is never easy. Going on the road to Wisconsin, and a Wisconsin team that's just been playing like out of their mind, right? Like they lost to Alabama and USC. They've won both games since then. They crushed Rutgers. They crushed Northwestern last Saturday, and now they have an opportunity to kind of have a big statement win. I mean, they've only lost 2 games. They're 5-2 on the year. This could be a legitimately good game, and I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if Penn State lost. And part of that is my unbelief in Penn State. Like I refuse to believe that they're good until they beat somebody that's really good. And then, of course, the nightcap, the game of the week, the game of the day, 8th-ranked LSU going on the road to Kyle Field to take on 14th-ranked Texas A&M. This is game of the day. This game tends to be crazy. Okay, I don't know if you remember, they had like a 7 overtime game a couple years ago. It was nuts. These are two of the better teams in the country competing for a spot in the college football playoff. Both teams have one loss. A&M lost to Notre Dame early in the year, which isn't a bad loss by any means, right? So they lost that game. LSU, they lost their game to, I don't even remember who. USC to start the year. That's what it was, which is not a great loss by any stretch of the imagination. USC 3-4 on the year. So both teams trying to avoid that second loss. Like if one of the, look, if you wind up playing in the SEC championship game, which LSU and Texas A&M both have a pretty good chance at doing, then you're probably going to make the college football playoff, even if you lose the SEC title game. Okay. Cause I think you and I would both agree that like if you're the second best team in the SEC, then you're probably one of the 12 best teams in the country. So big game, spot in the SEC title, not on the line per se, but this game is going to have an impact on who plays for the SEC title this year. And it definitely has college football playoff implications. That game is going to be awesome, and I cannot wait to watch that game on Saturday night at 7:30. And it's perfect because I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to go to Back Nine Golf. I'm going to get there at 10:30, get ready for Bourbon and Birdies, an awesome event that we here at Indy Sports Ticket are putting on. Go to indysportsticket.com, buy your ticket to Bourbon and Birdies. There's going to be like the bourbon list is on the website, and it's incredibly long. There's going to be so much good bourbon there. It is, I believe, endless samples. So buy your ticket, show up, drink a ton of bourbon, hit golf balls, eat good food, and then go home and watch college football. Okay, it's going to be a great show, or great day, excuse me, out there at Back Nine Golf. The event runs from 11 to 3 o'clock. If you buy a VIP ticket, you can show up at 11. If you buy a normal ticket, show up at noon, have a blast. The Indiana game is going to be up on the TVs. Like I said, it's going to be just an absolute blast. Go to indysportsticket.com, buy your ticket, show up, hit golf balls, eat good food, drink good bourbon, watch Indiana beat Washington, and meet me. I'll be there from 10:30 to 1. So should be a great time. I believe that Dan Dockich is showing up as well. Jared Dubin set to join me here in about 5 minutes or so. He's just great, smart guy, writes good stuff. You can find all this stuff over at cbssports.com. It's going to be a blast. This is just the best time of the year. Pacers are back. College football right around the corner. Colts play Sunday. Chiefs continue to look unstoppable. World Series starts on Friday. Just so much stuff going on. It's a great time to be a sports fan. Jared Dubin of CBS Sports joins me when we come back here in about 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice Thursday. My Thursday just got better because the one and only Jared Dubin of CBSSports.com is joining the show. Jared, what's going on, man?
Not too much. How about you?
Man, we got basketball back, and football's in full swing, and the World Series starts on Friday. I'm doing great. There's just so much stuff going on. Like, it's, I would say, the best time of the year to be a sports fan. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything else. You know, maybe once college basketball gets in there too, but that's presumably after the World Series ends. As long as the Yankees win, though, I'm okay with that. So,
that's right. You're a Yankees fan. Ugh. Nah, it's okay. I mean, I don't know. I just want good baseball. Like, we haven't had, Dodgers Yankees since 1981. So I just want the games to be good. That's really all that all I care about at this point. So, but we've got a day and until that happens. We've got Thursday night football tonight. But I want to start with the Colts. The Colts are 4-3. It doesn't feel real because there are clearly some issues and they've beaten some bad teams. What have your thoughts been on the Colts so far this year?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that the offense hasn't been able to get going more. Obviously, a lot of that falls on the feet of, or I guess on the arm of Anthony Richardson, who just hasn't been able to get his accuracy in check so far. But that said, to be able to get themselves to a 4-3 record, despite that, is pretty impressive. Worried, obviously, about the defense in a big picture sense. I think a bunch of teams have been able to get going on the ground against them. But I do have confidence in Shane Steichen to be able to get them in positions to succeed offensively. It's just a matter, I think, of whether Richardson can sort of hammer out the accuracy issues that he's having, because they are going to be able to run the ball and they are going to be able to create at least a few big plays in the passing game on a weekly basis. It's about being more consistent in the passing game in order to get that offense moving more consistently.
I feel very similar to that, joined by Jared Dubin, NFL writer for CBS Sports. So as you watch Anthony Richardson, and as we all have here in Indianapolis, one of the big topics of conversation has been, do guys get more accurate? My answer has been yes, and it's not even just like a look at Josh Allen thing. It's a look at Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts and John Elway and Peyton Manning and all these guys. Like, they got better over the course of time. So I guess how much hope do you have for Anthony Richardson to develop in kind of that accuracy part of his game?
Yeah, I think for a long time the answer was really no. And you look at the guys that have a similar record of completion rates that Richardson has had over the first several starts of his career. It's a bunch of guys who never became good. And then Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I don't think I would compare anybody else to, because he's a historical outlier to the point where it's not putting anybody else in the same category as him is generally not going to work out well for you. But that doesn't mean that Richardson can't become more accurate. It just means he's probably not going to become, one of the most accurate passers in the league like Allen has become. I think providing him with easier answers is something that should help. I think the fact that he's only started, 20 games in college and the pros combined, is something that needs to be taken into account. And then I think just getting the footwork right is one of the biggest things for quarterbacks in terms of being able to hit on what should be those layup passes, but sometimes guys that are really, really athletic with really big arms that have been able to, because of their physical gifts, just dominate every level of football that they've played and haven't necessarily had to have the best mechanics. That's something that might take a little while to get down. And, we got to remember he's still very young, still very inexperienced. That's all of which is to say it's not definitely going to happen, but there are reasons that it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Would you be surprised if the Colts made the playoffs?
I guess not, because it really seems like there are only 4 or 5 good teams in the AFC. So some teams that don't look that great are probably going to sneak in with, 1 or 2 of those last playoff spots. So if they get things together offensively on a more consistent basis over the course of the season, then yeah, they could be one of those teams. But if the defense, especially the run defense, I think doesn't pick up, then you have a little bit of a more difficult time.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's kind of been one of the questions, especially on defense, is like, can we not give up 180 rushing yards in a game? Like that'd be really nice. Joined by Jared Dubin, NFL writer for CBSSports.com. You can read all of his stuff over at CBSSports.com. He does great stuff over there. How does DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs change your Super Bowl outlook for the year?
Well, I had the Chiefs before the season, so I don't know that it changes it necessarily. I'm one of those guys at this point. I'm picking Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to win the Super Bowl every year until somebody proves to me that they're going to stop those guys. I picked the Bills a couple of years ago, and I was like, well, that was pretty stupid. Why didn't I just pick Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? And I'm just never doing that again. So it doesn't change my Super Bowl pick because I was already on them.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. But like that's who I had picked before the year as well. And I feel very similarly in terms of like, it's really hard for me to not pick these guys, but like the Ravens have like looked awesome. The Bills adding Amari Cooper, I think is a big deal. The Lions, even though Aiden Hutchinson got hurt, like they've shown like these really good moments as well, as especially on offense. Like, do you think those three teams like have a chance, or does it feel like with this Hopkins addition that the Chiefs just kind of pushed far enough ahead where it's like I don't really see anyone else beating them?
No, I mean, like those are all really good teams. And, especially if the season plays out in a way where one of them gets home field against the Chiefs, like obviously we saw them do it last year, go on the road and win for the first time that they actually had to do that in the playoffs. They had been at home in every previous AFC title game, which they've made every single year of Patrick Mahomes' career, which is just absurd. But it does give you at least more of a chance than having to go into Arrowhead and beat them there, in the AFC portion of the playoffs. I wouldn't say they're so far ahead that you can't pick anybody else. It's just when it comes down to it, I'm going to pick them because they're the best. Like, I'm going to pick, in general, the team that I think has the better offense and the better quarterback. And that's pretty much always going to be the Chiefs, even in a situation where, last year their offense didn't play at the level that we're used to it playing. Obviously, this year that has been even more the case as their receiving core has deteriorated even more than it was last year because they don't even have Rashee Rice. I don't think DeAndre Hopkins can be what Rashee Rice was for them last year and this year. He just doesn't have the same after the catch ability, but he can allow them to be a little bit more consistent than they've been in the passing game, especially because so much of their offense now is about underneath passing. And he has really good hands. He'll be able to get, even in those contested catch situations that someone like, Juju Smith-Schuster or Justin Watson isn't necessarily going to be, quite as able to make those catches over the middle of the field or in the short areas of the field or, on hitches or comebacks and things like that. And I think that'll help them be a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the big thing is just having a receiver that that you can go to on third down. It kind of feels the same way with the Bills of like they finally have a guy that on third down and in the red zone that's reliable in Amari Cooper. So I like the pickup for the Chiefs. Obviously, you lose some of the after the catch stuff that they had with Rashee Rice, but this is much better than what they had. Joined by Jared Dubin, NFL writer over at CBS. You can read all this stuff at CBSSports.com. So when the trade went through and I heard about it, my first question was, why haven't the other 31 NFL teams all agreed to not trade with the Chiefs? Like, it feels like that should be what happened. Like, are you surprised that a team is willing to help the Chiefs at this point?
I mean, from Cleveland's perspective, what do the Browns care if they help the Chiefs? Like they're not going anywhere. So it doesn't, the Titans care if they help the Chiefs. The Browns were the ones that helped the Bills. And in both cases, what do they care? They're not going anywhere. They're not competing with those teams. So, yeah, I mean, the Bills helping the Chiefs in terms of allowing them to move up to get Xavier Worthy in the first round. I think there are some questions you could have there, even if, like, from the Bills' perspective, they're thinking, we got the value we wanted. We don't care who the Chiefs are taking. But in the case of the Titans and the Browns, like, it doesn't really matter to them,
Yeah, you're right. That is the right answer. You're exactly right. My thing is just, I don't know, like I grew up in a family where like if you won once, everyone just dedicated the next game to making sure that you didn't win again. And so like that's just kind of how my mind works, like it was not good for my mental health growing up whenever I'd win and everyone would be like, you would like they'd audibly say it, they'd be like, don't let Jonathan win again. It was, it was tough, but that's all right. Is an undefeated season on the table for the Chiefs, or is it just like there's too many games? It's probably not going to happen because they're bound to have a bad game.
I would lean toward the latter, like the idea that you're going to get through an entire season with nothing bad happening. Like they were the best team in the league last year and they lost to the Raiders, like that kind of stuff just tends to happen through the course of a season. There's a reason we've only seen two teams in, the NFL has existed in some form for 80 years, and the Super Bowl era has been almost 60 years.
Yeah.
And we've seen it happen twice in, thousands of team seasons. Like the idea of saying this is going to happen just doesn't seem like something you should bet on.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. But at the same time, I was looking at the schedule and I was like, man, like it kind of feels like the only team that like really had a chance to beat them was the 49ers. And now it's like they play the Broncos twice, who are kind of fun and scrappy, but they're not as good as the Chiefs. And I think they still play the Raiders twice. I think they've got the Chargers, who are kind of fun and scrappy, but nowhere near the Chiefs in terms of talent. So I was like, I don't know, like I wouldn't be surprised because it's the Chiefs, but I think you're right in the idea of something bad's bound to happen. So we'll kind of see what happens there. The Bills are quietly one of the best teams in the NFL. Like there's some concerns on defense, but I think a lot of that just has to do with injury. How do you think they stack up with the Ravens and the Chiefs, who I think have probably been the two best teams in the AFC to start the year?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember if it was on your show or Dan's show earlier in the off season, but I was very confused why people were just assuming that the Bills were going to take some pretty big step back. Josh Allen, since he took his leap, the Bills have not won fewer than 11 games in any season. He is still either the second or third best quarterback and player in the league, depending on how you want to debate between him and Lamar Jackson. Lamar is playing obviously at a higher level than anybody pretty much this year, but you could go back and forth between those two guys. When your quarterback is that good, you're going to be a really good team. It really doesn't matter that much who else is on your team. We've seen that even with Mahomes not playing at nearly a level that we're accustomed to this year. They've made enough big plays in the right spots, and thankfully their defense has been good enough for them to win. I think it's a similar thing with Josh Allen. Like you're just going to be really good, and you're going to be there at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. This Amari Cooper edition feels pretty big for them, though. Did that change your opinion too much on them, or is it still just kind of like they have Josh Allen, so they'll be fine? It doesn't really matter if they have Amari Cooper or not.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it changed my opinion because I was already, I think, higher on them than most people. And even with the receiving core that they had in place, I was still pretty confident that they would be one of the top teams in the AFC, one of the top teams in the league. Obviously, Amari helps, and especially as he, grows more chemistry with Josh Allen. And we've seen his acquisition in season to a team that didn't really have that many elite options in the passing game. We've seen that help a team's offense take off over the second half of the season before. That's what happened when he was traded to Dallas. And, Josh, like as good as Dak Prescott is, Josh Allen's a lot better. He just has a physical gift that Dak Prescott, who was a fourth-round pick, doesn't really have. And when you get Amari in the mix with him, I think you can see they sort of take off for their passing offense over the second half of the year, and that just makes them even more dangerous.
So I want to switch gears and head over to the NFC, joined by Jared Dubin, who covers the NFL for CBS Sports. You can read all of his stuff over at cbssports.com. The NFC is interesting because I think it's deeper than the AFC, but just watching the Lions these past 3 weeks, like when Aiden Hutchinson went down, I was like, okay, the Lions are probably going to take a step back. And then Jared Goff was like, no, I'm not going to throw another incompletion for the rest of the year. And now they look just incredible. I think they're the best team in the NFC. Do you agree with that? And who do you think is kind of the top tier of the NFC?
Yeah, I think that they might kind of be alone in the top tier at this point, given the injury issues that San Francisco is having. And I think we saw at least somewhat the limitations of the Vikings offense competing with them with Sam Darnold at quarterback. And it's not that he's not good. It's more that he is being schemed into success in a greater degree than Jared Goff is at this point. And there's a little bit of a difference between those two things. I do think there are still reasons to be concerned about Detroit's defense and whether Aaron Glenn can sort of scheme up enough pressure up front to be able to lean on those defensive backs in the way that, he wants to play with them. But if they can, figure out a way to get the pass rush up to par, obviously Aiden Hutchinson not being there is pretty devastating from that perspective. But there is still a little bit less than 2 weeks until the trade deadline, and perhaps they can make a move for someone between now and then.
Joined by Jared Dubin, who covers the NFL for CBS. You can read all the stuff over at cbssports.com. In his own time, though, he also covers basketball because he really enjoys the sport. If you head over to lastnightinbasketball.com, you can read his stuff on hoops. All right, Jared, I've got 2 questions for you in the world of the NBA, which started up 2 days ago. And this first one feels a little overreaction-y. But I watched the Knicks play, and it's only one game, and so I feel bad even asking the question, but could the Knicks be bad? There's no depth. Mikal Bridges looks like an elementary schooler trying to learn how to shoot. Not a great showing in game 1. There's obviously 81 games left, but how do you kind of feel about the Knicks this year, who made some moves in the offseason that got people pretty excited?
I would say that the idea that they could be bad is going quite a bit too far. I do think it could take them a while to really get into the kind of rhythm that they want to get into, especially they made the Karl Towns trade right before training camp opened. They were already doing, practices, and Towns was not really there yet with them. And that's the kind of thing that could just take a while to gel, especially because he's such a different style of player than what they've had at the center position over the last few years under Tom Thibodeau and with Jalen Brunson at the point. It's just so much different than what they've been running before. And they're going to be a team that relies heavily on their offense, and it takes time to get that kind of chemistry down. That said, at one point they were shooting 60% against the Celtics and getting the doors blown off them just because of how well Boston was playing offensively and how well the Celtics were sort of targeting New York's centers specifically in pick and roll stuff and just putting the rest of the team in rotation. And I do think that's the kind of thing that could be a little bit of an issue throughout the season. They're going to have to try to figure out how they can get things more consistent and more clean on that end of the court, because that's going to be something that obviously determines whether they can even compete with a team like Boston.
Are you concerned at all about their, I would say, lack of depth, or is it once Precious Achiuwa comes back and once Mitchell Robinson comes back, they'll be fine? Or how concerned are you about the depth?
I'm concerned in the sense that we know OG Anunoby is going to miss time. That is going to happen. And over the last few years, Karl Towns has missed some time too. The only guys that you can, sort of definitely count on to be healthy throughout the season are Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges. Even Brunson had, some bumps and bruises over these last couple of years. And at that point, you're talking about you got to play guys that really shouldn't be in the rotation on any given night. And that's concerning to me. Obviously, Achiuwa coming back will help. At the point where if Mitchell Robinson ever steps on the court again, you have to consider it a bonus. You really just can't say when Mitchell Robinson comes back, that'll help. You just don't know if it's ever going to happen or for how long that will be the case if and when he does come back. So the depth issues are still there. I do think that having, the one pick swap that they have still remaining to use in a trade should be something that helps them potentially at the deadline. They do have, Robinson's salary, which a lot of people have been speculating that they might be able to get something for him, combine him with that pick swap at the deadline and get something. I'm skeptical. Why would anybody want to take on that money? It's almost definitely not going to be on the court.
Yeah.
But, with Achiuwa's $6 million salary, you could take something back there. maybe you combine that with Jericho Sims or one of these other guys that's on a minimum contract, and you can get someone that makes $8 or $9 million. Like, there are ways that you could figure something out. But the idea that they're going to have a solid, 9 guys for the playoffs doesn't really pass the smell test for me. It's going to be more like 6 or 7, and it just sort of depends who that 7th guy is, with McBride being the 6th.
Joined by Jared Dubin. He covers the NFL for CBS. You can read his stuff on the NFL at cbssports.com. And then he also covers basketball over at lastnightinbasketball.com. Last question for you, Jared. Thoughts on the Pacers? How good are they going to be? Like Eastern Conference run again, or Eastern Conference Finals run again, or just a good 50-ish win team? What do you kind of expect from them this year?
I think both of those things can be in play. Like, I think that between 2-5 or 2-6 in the East, you're sort of splitting hairs and seeing what happens in terms of injury luck and the other kind of things that can swing 2, 3, 4 games throughout the course of the regular season. And then injuries obviously can determine things in the playoffs, like we saw for a bunch of different teams last year. The big thing with the Pacers is, there was a lot of talk during the playoffs, like, oh, they've been so much better on defense during the playoffs. They still gave up points during the playoffs at what would have been a bottom 10 rate during the regular season.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you can keep up the type of full court pressure that they were using specifically against the Bucks and the Knicks, just because they didn't have more than one ball handler. And, Dame was hurt in that Bucks series, and Brunson was dealing with a whole bunch of injuries during that Knicks series. It's just really tough to keep up that kind of pressure throughout the course of an entire regular season. So whether they can sort of lock in more on that end and be merely a below average defense instead of a bad one, that's something that kind of determines their ceiling, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hopefully, Jarris Walker, young second-year player who could be a good defender. We'll see. He's 6'8" with really long arms. Maybe he can help with that. We'll see. He didn't play a ton last night. Jared, thanks for your time, man. You were great as always.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
See you. That is Jared Dubin of CBS Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at JADubin05. His link to lastnightinbasketball.com is in his bio. He does a great job covering both sports. That's why I have him on. And he's a great dude as well. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Colts, Texans, titling that game. Big game on Sunday. Cannot wait to get into it. And we will here in about 4 minutes.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice week. Thanks for tuning in to the show. Thursday Night Football tonight, Rams, Vikings. Rams getting healthy. I believe Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are back. Should help this Rams offense that's, gotten off to a slow start with all the injuries that have happened for them this year. Talk about the Colts being banged up. Man, those Rams, tough start, but they got time to make a run, and hopefully they do, because I may or may not have picked them to play in the Super Bowl this year. Anyway, Colts play the Texans, divisional matchup on Sunday. I love books. I love movies. Okay, I'm trying to go find another movie to watch. I watched Wild Robot a couple weeks ago. Really good. Had an absolute blast watching that movie. I had an absolute blast. It was great. Anyway, reading a lot of books right now. It's good. Some people judge books by covers, which is cool, by the way. That's why they're there. Others judge movies by trailers. I don't. I'm all about the title, man. Like, I am a titleist through and through. If your title sucks, I'm not reading your book. I'm not watching your movie. It's really that simple, because titles matter, right? They often hint at the theme of the book or the movie. Every book has a theme, every movie has a theme, and the title usually leads into that. And every sporting event, every game has some sort of theme. And because titles give you a hint at the theme, every Thursday, I like to give a title to the Colts and Indiana football games that are happening over the weekend. These titles are projections of what I think the theme of the game is going to be. With that being said, the title for the Colts-Texans rematch from week 1 is Colts versus Texans. Show me the money! Show me the money. Whoa, where'd that thing go? There it is. Colts versus Texans, show me the money. That is the title for this week's Colts game. And I can't wait for this game, right? It's big. It's important. It's a divisional game. Divisional games, they matter. Simple as that. In a stadium a little over 1,000 miles away from the seat that I currently sit in, the 5-2 Houston Texans will host the 4-3 Indianapolis Colts with the spot atop the division on the line, right? The Houston Texans, they're trying to build this lead that they have within the division while the Colts are trying to tie them. This is a rematch from week 1 in which the Texans beat the Colts 29-27. It was a hard-fought game from both teams, filled with explosive plays. Anthony Richardson showed his ability to do the improbable. We all remember him slipping, then dropping a 60-yard dot right in Alec Pierce's hands for a touchdown. Right. And while he was doing that, CJ Stroud was being CJ Stroud, which is just enough to win what seems like every game that he plays in. Okay, Joe Mixon ran wild like a Wild West Texan on an undomesticated Bronco on his way to 159 yards and a touchdown while averaging over 5 yards a carry. And from that game on, we've all had the same question about this Colts defense. Can they stop the run? They haven't. Okay. Right, but these past 2 weeks, the Colts defense is better, right? They held the Dolphins to 10 points last week. They held the Titans to 17 points 2 weeks ago, right? They're currently 12th in the NFL in points allowed per game. But that just doesn't feel right considering the rushing yards that they've allowed. Okay, Gus Bradley claimed earlier this week in his press conference on Tuesday that these defensive issues have been fixed. And this Colts defense has an opportunity to show us Colts fans the money. They have an opportunity to provide proof that these defensive struggles from week 1 are gone. On the offensive side of the ball, Colts had nothing but big plays. That's the only way that they scored in that week 1 loss. And the Texans defense, which is extremely banged up, will look to limit the big plays from this Colts offense. And a lot of it was Anthony Richardson just throwing the ball over the Texans' head. Right? Anthony Richardson was 9 of 19 for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns with an interception in that game. Right? And in that game, Anthony Richardson had a completion of 54 yards, a completion of 57 yards, and a completion of 60 yards. Since that game, Anthony Richardson hasn't shown much. Right? He hasn't. And Indianapolis fans are starting to doubt the young quarterback. And he has an opportunity to show them the money on Sunday, to create more big plays and to prove why the Colts took him 4th overall. Okay, whoever makes the better adjustments after that week 1 game will likely come out victorious in Colts versus Texans part 2. Show me the money. This is a big game for the Colts, right? It's a divisional game, right? They have an opportunity to tie the season series at 1 game apiece. They'll have an opportunity to tie the Texans atop the division as well with 9 games left, right? Like, this is a big game. And Anthony Richardson was asked about the importance of this game yesterday before practice.
I know it's definitely on our mind, but honestly, we're not thinking about like trying to, tie records or anything like that. Honestly, just trying to win. It's a division game. This one counts double for us, so we're just trying to, get the dub and just keep stacking each and every week. That
was Colts starting quarterback Anthony Richardson right there talking about this upcoming game against the Houston Texans, which is important. And, people obviously are going to tune in and watch, and like there's a lot of meaning behind the game because it's a divisional game. Something about Anthony Richardson that has its positives and its negatives is his demeanor. Okay, there are times where I'm like, geez, man, could you have a little bit more energy? Could you have a little higher sense of urgency? And then there's other times where I'm like, I'm glad he's so calm and cool. Seriously. And this is one of those moments where I like how relaxed he is, right? Because this game is big. It is important. But I like that he's just kind of treating it like it's another game, because ultimately, like, that's what it is. Like, obviously the Colts want to win this game just like they want to win every game that they play. But like, it's a week 8 game on the road against the Texans. Like, if they lose, they're 4-4 with 9 games left. If they go, 6-3 down the stretch, then like they probably make the playoffs, right? So while this game is important, because every divisional game is important, even if they lose, like, you don't have to hit the panic button, right? Like this isn't the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 3-4 on the year and doing everything they can to crawl back into the playoff picture. Like, this is a Colts team that's 4-3. A win would obviously be huge. It'd give them a chance at winning the division. But ultimately, if they lose, there's 9 games left, and a lot can happen in 9 games. Okay, guys get hurt, players return from injury, trades are made. Even if the Colts lose this week, they can still make the playoffs. And I appreciate Anthony Richardson's calm demeanor, right, heading into this game, right? Because he doesn't need to be riled up. Because even though it's important, it's another regular season game with the second half of the season still in front of them, right? This is the second meeting between these two teams this year, and it's important because all divisional games are important. Colts head coach Shane Steichen was asked about his takeaways from the first game and, how that kind of impacts the way that they prep. So here's Colts head coach Shane Steichen talking about some of the takeaways that he had from the first game.
Yeah, I think there's just some opportunities in the game too. I think obviously it was 13-15 at one point. We went for 2, didn't get it, and then they scored, and then we kind of stalled a little bit and then created the big plays late in the game, to get back in it. So obviously creating those earlier in the game and maintaining drives offensively will be big, and then eliminate the explosives that they have on offense will be big for us.
That was Colts head coach Shane Steichen right there talking about this upcoming rematch against the Houston Texans. And look, he's right. Colts generated a lot of big plays, not even just on offense, right? They had the blocked punt as well. The one thing that they didn't do that would be really nice if they did on Sunday is force any turnovers. Okay, like that has been a large part of why the Colts have won the 4 games that they've won. Obviously, they had the 2 interceptions against Chicago. They had the 2 forced fumbles last week against the Dolphins. They had the interception against the Titans. Like, turnovers have played a major role in the Colts' ability to win all of these games, right? So if they could force a turnover on Sunday against Houston, that'd be awesome. The biggest thing, though, in that clip from Coach Shane Steichen is how he talked about how the offense needs to be more consistent. And that's really the biggest thing. The Colts had 6 drives of 5 plays or less the first time that they played against the Texans. Okay, it led to an extremely lopsided time of possession. Okay, the Texans had the ball for 40 minutes. The Colts had the ball for 20 minutes. Right, and that's a big deal for multiple reasons. First of all, the less your defense is on the field, the less chances the other team has to score, right? So that's the biggest thing. But the other thing is rest, right? Like, playing defense requires more energy than playing offense. Okay, because pursuing someone for whatever reason just drains you a little bit more. And when your defense is on the field for 40 minutes and there's 2.5 minutes left to go in the game and you have to stop the run, it's just harder because you're worn down and you're just more tired. Okay. And if you go back and you watch that week 1 game between the Colts and the Texans, you'll realize in those last 5 minutes that Colts defense is absolutely exhausted. Okay. And the other thing is, this Colts defense isn't very good. Okay. So we want them on the field as little as possible. So one of the biggest things going into this game for the Colts is Anthony Richardson has to be better on third down, right? And this is the thing that the Anthony Richardson critics love to bring up, and it is a great point to make. Okay. I'm not saying that the Anthony Richardson critics who bring this up are wrong. They are right in this regard. He has to be better on third down. Okay, and I'm not talking I don't need him to convert 3rd and 13. Okay, because most quarterbacks in the NFL don't do that. I need him to convert 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6. Okay, I need him to be able to step and throw that little slant route that's 7 yards when the Colts need 5. That is what the Colts need from him on Sunday, and if he can do that, and if the Colts can hold the ball a little bit more, and if the Colts can find a way to stop the run, then they should have a great chance to go into Houston, win that game, improve to 5-3, and be tied with the Texans at the top of the division. Okay? Those 3 things right there. Anthony Richardson has to be efficient on third down. Right? They have to hold on to the ball a little bit more, right? Because the Texans have it for 40 minutes. You're probably not going to win. And the Colts have to find a way to slow Joe Mixon down. He can't run for 159 yards again and average over 5 yards a carry. Like, that's just, it's not a good recipe. It's just not a good recipe to win games. Okay, so hopefully the Colts, Shane Steichen and those guys figure it out. If not, the weekend's going to be fine because Indiana's playing Washington. Okay, I've got a ton of faith in Coach Cignetti and the rest of this Indiana football team to beat Washington. But with that being said, we have to give the game a title, and that's what I'm going to do when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice week. Thursday, we got one more sleep until Friday. Cannot wait to get into all of this, man. I can't wait for football. On Saturday, plenty of great games. Indiana playing Washington, another opportunity to prove that they're one of the 12 best teams in the country. Can't wait to get into that. And then Sunday, oh man, Colts, Texans, big game there. Just titled that one, right? When I do this thing every Thursday because I love books and movies, and I'm a titleist. Like, the title really matters to me. If you don't have a good title, I'm not going to read your book, and I'm not going to watch your movie. Okay, I'm a titleist, and I don't mean the golf brand. Okay, I believe that titles really matter. Okay, they hint at the theme of the book or the movie or whatever thing you're about to consume. And I think sports, very similarly, every game has some sort of theme. And so every Thursday, I give a title to the upcoming Colts game, and I give a title to the upcoming Indiana game. Okay, and this week, the Indiana Hoosiers, they're set to take on a good Washington team. Right there, Washington's 4-3. Ignore that. Like, Washington is a legitimately good team, right? They beat Michigan earlier in the year. Like, they play defense. Will Rogers, he played at Mississippi State previously. Like, he can throw the football around. But when it comes to this game, there's only one good title, considering that Taven Jackson is going to be the starting quarterback for Indiana. 4-star recruit coming out of high school, a guy that everyone, I think, was looking forward to when he showed up on campus. With that being said, the title of this week's Washington versus Indiana game is
A Smooth Criminal.
Washington versus Indiana. Taven Jackson has an opportunity to be a smooth criminal. He has an opportunity to step in and be important and to steal a game from Washington, because Washington coming into this game thinks that they have an opportunity to win with Curtis Rourke, the normal Indiana starting quarterback, out of the game, right? This game is taking place in Bloomington. Indiana 7-0, ranked 13th in the country. Washington is 4-3. It's a sold-out crowd. College game day is going to be there. The excitement nationwide around Indiana football has never been higher. Curt Cignetti is an absolute rock star. If you did like an approval rating list, number 1 would be puppies. Number 2 would be Coach Cignetti. He's provided a real spark around this program, and it's fun to watch. Like, noon Saturday, if we didn't have Bourbon and Birdies, which you should totally go to indysportsticket.com for all the information on that. If I didn't have that, I'd be playing it on the couch watching that game. Instead, I'm going to be at back 9 watching that game. So it's going to be, that event's going to be a blast, and watching Indiana play football is going to be a blast because they're tough, they're hard-nosed, right? And people have real belief in this team as a college football playoff team, right? And they're going to have to win this week without their starting quarterback to keep people believing. And they're playing a Washington team that's good, right? And while Washington appears to be a good, solid team, Indiana appears to be great. Okay, and every week we're going to continue to learn about Indiana and what this team is made of. They blew the doors off Nebraska last week, 56-7. They outplayed them in every area of that game. And one of the biggest things for this Indiana team was the play of starting quarterback Curtis Rourke, right? He was having a stellar year, completing 75% of his passes on the year. Insert joke about him being better than Anthony Richardson already right here. He'd thrown for almost 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. The dude's a stud, right? And hopefully he comes back sooner rather than later. Hopefully he's available in the following game after Washington. I believe that's Michigan State. Don't remember that one entirely, though. But who your opponent is matters. It's something I've talked about a great deal on this show, and it always will matter. What matters more, though, is who's playing quarterback. Okay? Like, if you have a bad quarterback, it doesn't matter who you're playing. Anyone can beat you, right? And when you have a good quarterback, it doesn't matter who you're playing. You can beat anyone. Okay? Indiana playing a good Washington team on Saturday. And if Taven Jackson doesn't show up and play well, then they're going to be in trouble. Simple as that. Now, Taven Jackson doesn't have to be like Heisman level. Like, he doesn't have to be a smooth criminal, so to speak, whenever he's playing quarterback. He just can't play like a toddler trying to steal a cookie out of a cookie jar. Like I have a toddler nephew. That kid gets caught trying to do anything that's wrong. Okay. Like Taven Jackson has to be good. Like he doesn't have to be great. He just can't be bad in order for the Hoosiers to win on Saturday. If he can make the basic throws, Indiana will have a chance. And if he can't convert 3rd and 4, and in the third quarter, Indiana's offense starts to look like Michigan's where they can't throw a forward pass, then they're going to be in trouble, right? And I know that because I saw Washington beat Michigan earlier in the year by 10. Okay, but here's the good thing for Taven Jackson. Indiana has a good support system around him, right? Plenty of capable receivers, like just a ton of running backs. They've ran the ball well all year, right? So Indiana's going to have a run game that they can rely on. They're going to have a defense that consistently has gotten stops all year. That's going to help Taven Jackson. But Indiana's not going to go the entire game without facing 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. Like there are going to be plays where everyone in the stadium knows that Taven Jackson's going to throw the football, right? And on those plays, can he get crucial first downs? Like Washington is a good team, okay? And those plays could decide this game. Like I don't expect for what Indiana did to Nebraska to happen again this week. Like I don't expect for Indiana to beat Washington, by 7 touchdowns like they did to Nebraska. I expect this game to be a bit closer. Okay, like the line's 6.5. Taven Jackson played well against Nebraska when he came in last week, but Indiana already had a huge lead, right? And it's very different playing in a game when you already have a huge lead as opposed to coming out and starting when it's 0-0. Okay, there's no doubt that Taven Jackson is talented. This staff knows it, and Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti was asked about playing Taven Jackson earlier in the week, and here's what he had to say about the young sophomore quarterback out of Greenwood.
So I have confidence. The staff has confidence in Taven Jackson. I thought he played really well in the second half. I think you see it during the games when he gets his opportunity, and how he's responded and how he responded on Saturday. And, he's a year older. And it's a different offense. It's a different system. Tino does a great job of developing the quarterbacks. He's got excellent potential, and he's gotten better. And now he's got an opportunity, and he's got to take it and run with it.
That was Indiana football head coach Curt Cignetti talking about Taven Jackson and the opportunity that he has this week when Washington comes to town, when College Game Day comes to town. It's going to be just a great weekend down there in Bloomington. It's going to be great. And when it comes to Taven Jackson, like that's the guy that people have questions about. Like that's the guy that Indiana fans have questions about because we haven't seen him, right? We've seen the rest of this Indiana football team the last 7 weeks go out and seamlessly dominate everybody that they've played. Okay. And like Curt Cignetti said right there, like they have confidence in him and they know that he's talented, right? Like Taven Jackson was a 4-star recruit coming out of Center Grove in Greenwood. Okay, like he's talented, he's athletic, right? Like his brother is a starting center in the NBA, right? He started for the Warriors last night. Trace Jackson Davis did. We just need to see Taven Jackson be good and consistent on the field. He is the X factor for Indiana, and if he can be consistent throwing the ball, then Indiana should run Washington out of the building. This game won't be close if Taven Jackson can just be consistent. He doesn't need to be great. He doesn't need to be Superman. But if he can just convert third downs and Indiana can run the ball, which I'm assuming that they'll be able to do, this game won't be close. But if Taven Jackson struggles, Indiana could very quickly find themselves in a dogfight against what is a very good Washington football team. Speaking of very good teams, Pacers are 1-0. They won last night 115-109 on the road against the Detroit Pistons. Miles Turner led the Pacers in scoring and rebounding with 20 points and 9 rebounds. Halliburton got off to a slow start, but he picked it up in the second half. Biggest takeaway watching the first game of the year from the Pacers is that they're going to win the whole thing. Not really. My biggest takeaway is like this team is just deep. Okay, Ben Shepherd, who got real playoff minutes last year, only played 6 minutes last night. 12 different guys touched the floor, and it wasn't because the Pacers were getting blown out or because the Pacers were blowing out the Pistons. It was a close game the whole way. Like there's just a ton of talent and a ton of depth on this team. And it's going to be interesting to see how Rick Carlisle manages it throughout the year. I think they play again tomorrow night. They're on ESPN playing the Knicks. That was a great series last year. The game on Friday should be a lot of fun to watch. Pacers are 1-0. The road to 82-0 is still alive. We'll see how long it stays alive for. Thanks for tuning in to The Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Should be a blast, okay? I try to have as much fun on my show as possible. Hopefully, you enjoyed it. Head over to YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. Subscribe to the channel. Tune in tomorrow over there. Hop in the chat and be part of the conversation. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way here in about 5 minutes.